Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about episodes 3 through 5 of Apple TV's Lady in the Lake. Each of these episodes have long-ass titles that are just quotes of the episode, so I'm not going to bother doing that whole routine explaining the episode title. So, after I did my first video, I was still on the fence regarding whether or not I wanted to continue watching this show, let alone covering it. It wasn't because I disliked it or anything like that. It was mostly because I was unsure if I liked it enough. I started the third episode. I had to stop it for whatever reason. And I didn't find myself too motivated to return. Like, weeks passed, subsequent episodes dropped, and I just didn't feel like the need or desire to get caught up. Even though I had nothing against the first two episodes, this kind of like, this apathy toward returning to it suggested to me that I just wasn't into this show enough to cover it. For whatever reason, I decided to finish episode 3 one night on a whim, and I found it ended interestingly enough that it compelled me to immediately watch episodes 4 and 5, with the 5th having dropped maybe like that day or the previous day, something like that. Now here we are, the season's ended. I have watched episodes 6 and 7, and I think it goes without saying that I must have gotten back in on this show, right? Like, not that I was ever fully out, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it's not a great show. Like, it's probably not going to make my top 10. A lot's going to hinge on how it ends, which, I'm trying to pretend like I haven't seen it already. But at the time, there was a lot dependent on how it depended on how it ended. Me recording this video now is not an endorsement of how it ended. Just like, oh, he must have ended up liking it. I had this video prepared to go to record kind of a long time ago, and I just never got around to recording it. So now I'm recording it, and the show has ended. But at the time that I did all my preparation, I had not yet seen episode 6 and 7. But 3, 4, and 5, doing a lot of things that I found unique or interesting, for better or worse, that I felt like I just wanted to hop on here and talk about. So let's get into it. And I want to start with Natalie Portman and her character, Maddie. Now, I think I made it pretty clear in my first video that Natalie Portman sets my loins afire. So it's been increasingly difficult to watch Officer Platt just casually climb in her window and live out my fantasy. But what's been even more shocking is how much I absolutely loathe her character. Like, I don't know if she's like this in the book or if they made her worse for the show, but my God, this is an unlikable woman who I have said despicable things about in my notes that I cannot reveal to you guys. And I'm not trying to shit on like the character itself, by the way. Like, I think Portman is doing an absolutely remarkable job of playing this like entitled, spoiled, and impetuous housewife. Like, I love to hate her, like kind of like Joffrey Baratheon. Like, as a matter of fact, at the time that I did these notes, I was really looking forward to the next episode just to see what kind of Karen-like behavior she'd exhibit next. As a matter of fact, Maddie just might take the final spot on my Mount Rushmore of most hated characters, along with Lori Grimes, Skylar White, and Iris from Mayor of Kingstown. And you're sitting there like, oh wow, Mike, all women, sexist much? No, fuck you. Aside from Iris, who I think is a terrible character in general, the other three are almost kind of more of a shout out to the actress for doing such a good job of playing such a shitty fucking person. So let's get into all the ways in which I hate Maddie. First, the situation with it's Stefan, right? Stefan, like Steph Curry. The crazy guy from the fish store, who is at the time of episodes 4, 5, and 6, locked up in 3, 4, and 5. Locked up in a mental institution for Tessie Durst's murder. In episode 2, she gave that reporter for the Star, Bob Bauer, a tip as he was leaving her apartment. After he said that they pay well for leads, she gave him one for free and let him leave. Then in episode 3, she shows up at the Star itself, and I'm thinking like she's about to ask for money after the fact. Like, yo, I gave you a tip, you used it, now you said you pay money for good leads, now I want some money. And I was prepared to call bullshit on that. Like, I was gonna get on camera like, you don't get to come back after the fact like, yeah, I gave you that tip for free, but now I want money now that I know it worked out for you. Like, no, that's not how we gonna do things out here. But no, she didn't want payment for the tip. She wanted a whole motherfucking job. Like, the entitlement of this woman, dog. Like, I don't know what they were going for in that scene. It felt like they might have been going for him being dismissive of her because she's a woman. The show's been very clear about showing how women are treated at this time in the 60s, how Jewish women are treated at this time in the 60s, how black people are treated in the 60s. It's clear that they are going for that. But in that scene, I wasn't sure if they were trying to tell me that he was being dismissive of her because she was a woman, but all I got from it was him rightfully dismissing a woman who made an absolutely insane request, thinking, I gave you a tip, now give me a job. Like, how is that a reasonable request? But that's part of what makes her character so unlikable for me, though. Like, on one hand, the show is definitely trying to show me how difficult it is for her as a Jewish woman in the 60s. But then at the same damn time, no future, she's a goddamn entitled piece of shit and thinks she deserves so much for having done so little. Like, or even in some cases, thinking that she deserves some good despite having caused harm. Like, so then she writes Stefan as if he's someone who, or Stefan, I'm sorry. Stefan, not Stefan like Urkel. I don't know if anybody's going to get that reference. But she writes Stefan as if it's someone who deserves sympathy in the first place, because she has no reason to believe that he didn't do this crime until she heard that there was a black man there too. So, like, as a matter of fact, let me take a little side tour real quick. That annoyed me too. It was like, once she heard there was a black man there, it was like, oh, well, obviously it wasn't the white guy. we know, obviously the murder, per me, Maddie, the authority on the subject, knows it must have been the black guy. But she writes this guy, Stefan, and lies to him about sympathizing with him. Then when he writes back, she uses the response to ultimately get an interview with him and then a job at the paper. And I'm like, I thought it was bad when she was sympathizing with Stefan because she had no reason to believe that he didn't do it. But no, she was really, really only doing it because she wanted money to be able to pay for that apartment. So even worse than just assuming that he was innocent, she didn't give a fuck. It was because she wanted to get a job so she could pay for her apartment. Entirely self-motivated. The next thing I hate about Maddie is how she treated and continues to treat her family. In my first video, I already talked about her decision to abandon her family. But what really made me hate her was how she treated her son Seth when he came to her place. She calls him selfish for wanting to stay with his father and for not sympathizing with whatever the fuck she's got going on that prompted her to abandon her family, as if there's anything you could have going on that justifies that. Then she says he only thinks of himself, which is like her number one character attribute. Like if they said list Maddie's character attributes, I would be like self-absorbed, selfish, whatever you want to call it. That'd be number one. So then she proves how selfish she is by telling Seth that Milton isn't his real father, a move that was really solely made for Maddie to save face in that argument, and not because it was like vital information that Seth needed at that time. What a wretched, wretched person she is. What a wicked, wicked monkey. Anyway, she's so goddamn fine though. Anyway, we also learned that she's the type of high-quality person to cheat on her boyfriend with his father, so that's a thing, too. That's cool. She gets pregnant, and the father makes her abort the baby. At least I think that's what we're meant to take from that scene. At first, I thought she was giving birth, and that the kid was likely Seth, but then the father said something to the effect of, like, I'd love to have a baby with you, but whatever reasons he gave right before they cut to that scene. So I'm guessing he made her get an abortion, and all of that screaming was likely what it was like to get an abortion in what would have been at this time, probably like the 1940s. I also read somewhere that she never actually had a relationship with the father in the book, and that's a pretty massive pivot to manifest and create for the show. I'm wondering why they decided to do that. Still not done with how she treats her family, though. Maddie meets with Milton, who comes bearing divorce papers, of course. Justifiable, given that she's a piece of shit. Her response, first thing, will I get alimony? What? You abandon your family, and your husband comes to divorce you, and your first thought is, am I gonna get money? Then she tries to flip it on him, like, oh, you met someone, didn't you? I bet she's super young. Like, I wouldn't have even answered that question. Like, why does someone who left me deserve to know who the fuck I'm dealing with? Like, fuck out of here, man. Hey, everybody. I just want to take a small break from this review to talk about the various other ways you can engage with me on other platforms. If you're so inclined, and I understand why you wouldn't, I am an acquired taste, but you can join the Patreon where you can get extra content like retro reviews, where I review old shows and movies to see if they still hold up today. Mike's Musings, where I talk about shows I'm watching that I don't cover on the channel. or Mike's VOD, where you can commission me to watch a show, which I will then review on the channel. And if you want to engage with me and chat with me more directly, I also implore you to join the Discord and follow the Facebook page. I set up channels in the Discord for all of us to discuss the shows I'm reviewing on the channel, and I also drop new videos in there since it's the easiest platform for me to share to from my phone. The Facebook can be really fun because I sort of live comment on shows I'm watching, often while under the influence, I'm not gonna lie. And I'll also share news there, both about television and film and about myself as well. So if you like my content, you want to be more engaged, you think I'm charming, or you simply want to show support, feel free to sign up for the Patreon or join the Discord or Facebook today. Links to all platforms are in every video description. Remember to share all my shit to your respective social media platforms. And now back to this review. So then later, in that great scene where where Superman, aka Alan, I don't know if you hadn't watched my video for the first two. Guy that plays Alan on here is the guy that's gonna be playing Superman, and oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Oh god, the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, he's doing Superman. Jim. Fuck, I forgot his name. But you know a man who did Guardians of the Galaxy. He's now doing Superman. The guy who plays Alan's gonna be Superman, so I'm gonna call him Superman sometimes. But he gives her shit for drumming up sympathy for Stefan by talking in her article about how he was tested on. Seth agrees. He's like, I'm with Superman. Like, you are, like that was shitty of you to do. And then she slaps him in front of everyone for pointing out how very objectively shitty she is. Like, you're the same woman who abandoned your family to stay in the hood and live out your fucking, like, suburban housewife dream of getting black dick. But yeah, somehow the kid is wrong and deserves to be slapped. But now I want to talk about... Now I want to talk about the thing that I hate about Maddie the most. Like, I haven't even gotten to the shit that really fires me up. Her entitlement. Like, I already touched on this with the thing with the Bauer and the tip and all that, and her asking for the job. But that isn't even anywhere near the most entitled thing that she did in these episodes. The most egregious example of her insufferable entitlement is when she goes to the black newspaper and expects them to just hand over everything that they have on Cleo because she's white and asked. And when she's justifiably told to go fuck off and stay out of black folks' business. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's what we tell motherfuckers. Stay out of black folks' business. She then basically says that the black folks' world is also her world because she's been living in the hood for a little bit. And, like, I wouldn't have felt one bit bad if, like, an airplane engine fell out of the sky and onto her head. And I would have mourned the loss of the gorgeous Natalie Portman, but I would not have cared about the splattering of Maddie. I also didn't like how after she moved her white Jackie O ass into the bottom, she fakes being robbed for insurance money, despite what that obviously is going to look like with a white person moving into the hood and immediately getting robbed. Then she asked the dude who runs the restaurant on the main floor to take messages for her like he's a goddamn concierge. Like, I fucking hate her. Like, she's... like, she lets herself get demeaned and smacked on the ass at the newspaper, so that she got that going on too. Like, at the end of the day, you know, I've spent a lot of time on this video shitting on Maddie, all of the time, shitting on Maddie, but I don't want to give the impression that I don't like what they're doing with her on this show. Like, she is an unlikable character, and it's all jokes, and it's fun, but she does feel authentic. Like, Natalie Portman is playing the fuck out of this role, and I do love to hate this character. But before I wrap up talking about Maddie, I want to briefly get away from how reprehensible of a person she is and talk about the narrative that surrounds her in these 3 episodes. I've already talked about the situation with Stefan, and this culminates in a great scene where he ends up at her apartment, admittedly after a pretty implausible escape from the mental institution. But after that well-executed and intense scene, she eventually ends up at her mother's house. At his mother's house. Everything seems cordial until the mother starts to see that Maddie wants to get Stefan out of jail. Gotta get that guilty black man in there that I have no evidence on. And she thinks he needs to chill in there for a little bit. Like, she doesn't even want Stefan to get out. Maddie being Maddie, she decides to throw it in the mom's face that Stefan came to see her when he broke out of the hospital, and she gets herself stabbed. Very, very deservedly so. Hallelujah. I doubt she'll learn a lesson from this. People who are entitled to this degree never see their own flaws or mistakes or contributions to the shit that happens to them. But I did have a couple of problems with this. One, that came out of nowhere. And not in a I'm surprised she got stabbed sort of way, in a how did this escalate to this place out of nowhere kind of way. Then they leave it as a cliffhanger for episode 5, like as if I'm gonna spend the next week wondering if Natalie Portman's character, the series lead on the show, is gonna die. Like before having solved anything. Like all I really took from that is that they didn't care how implausible it was that someone would live through that. They just wanted a really exciting scene and would deal with the consequences of the implausibility next week. Like, I'm sure there will be like a line that's like, you were lucky to live, that life missed your insert vital body organ by 1 centimeter or something like that, right? But the forcefulness of that stabbing, the size of that knife, how deep it went, the placement into her stomach, the ensuing fight, the pass out on the phone with 911, like they built up a scenario, where most people would die just so that they could have a cliffhanger, even though it's very fucking obvious she's not gonna die. So as of now, Maddie is at this point where she's making the connection, thanks to a tip from Slappy, that Cleo's murder, which was discovered via a letter to her helpline, is tied to Shell's numbers racket. With 2 episodes left, Tessie's case seems even farther away from connecting to Cleo's, but I don't know if they necessarily have to connect, since the investigation into Tessie's death is what set off the circumstances that led to the discovery of Cleo's body and Cleo's death itself. And since I know what happened to Cleo, I'm less invested in Maddie's quest to find out what happened to Cleo, and more invested in Tessie's situation, since I don't know what happened with her or who was involved. But this video is already going on pretty long, so I want to spend the remainder of my time talking about Moses Ingram and her character Cleo. A good chunk of these first few episodes really just show Cleo's life. Her working for Shell, her working at the department store, her trying to care for her son with sickle cell while her husband behaves irresponsibly and her other son is doing a number of shit recklessly. But the purpose is to show how determined she is to be a good mother and a good wife. Cleo's journey to try to get help from her son, how even the priest wanted to get money out of her, and how that ultimately led to her gambling scam and death as a loose end. I thought it was all very well written, executed, and performed. Ingram has some great scenes throughout these episodes. The stuff with her father was great. I love that scene of her making him earn the $10 so he could get his trumpet back by doing that cute little performance together. Because it made learning that he abandoned her later, it stings so much more. That was a really cute scene. It's like, oh God, he's a piece of shit. So the scene in episode 3 where she went to the club despite Reggie telling her not to, that she got loose, drinking, dancing, only to later break down a slap over not being able to save the son with sickle cell. Heart-wrenching stuff. Great work from Ingram again. Real quick on that note, the music on this show, absolutely incredible. The music in that scene, well, pretty much any scene in the club, in Shell's club, has been great. The music at her funeral, great. Whoever's in charge of the music on this show is doing an absolutely incredible job. So I just want to say that. I also love the scene where after she brought the idea of her number scam to Reggie, she used Dora as insurance because she knew Reggie wouldn't harm her. Like, that was really smart. Like, he might be thinking about killing me, so FYI, if anything happens to me, it was Reggie that did it. that really backed Reggie into a corner, but because we know he's not going to do anything to Dora. But the last thing I want to talk about is my favorite scene of the series so far. It was Slap going off on everybody at Cleo's funeral. Man, that was a great scene. Like, I was starting to fall asleep prior to that scene. And not because it was a bad episode. I'm just old and I was tired. This is what it is, right? But that scene woke me way the fuck up. Like, I loved all the truth he spoke. But I love how it mixed in with, like, anger and resentment toward everyone who even played a minor role in Cleo's death. Like, going around the room and telling everybody why they're a piece of shit is always going to perform well with your boy. Like, I'm always going to support that. You call a black cop a pigger, you good with me, man. I'm going to start calling for an Emmy. But on that note, I'm going to wrap this one up. I will see you all very shortly with my thoughts on the final 2 episodes. And until then, peace.